All right, we're all sitting comfortably now. These three presentations would normally take, probably about an hour or 45 minutes each. So what I've done is I've compressed them all. So I'm going to whiz through this. It is about an hour, maybe a little bit longer. After which we'll have questions. The BCG has always been about solutions, right? And we've been a very quiet organization. We've been working behind the scenes putting together solutions. And if you sit down and look at the problems, I mean, what's actually happened, we've actually spent a great deal of time. And I have to sort of take my hat off to the magnificent work that's been done by Brian Gerrish and Mike Robinson and Luke Collins. It's absolutely superb, and it's really exploding this whole thing. They can't shut us up. They can't keep this one undercover. This thing is now coming out. So what we've got to do now, as I said at the very beginning this morning, is we've got to be ready for when the floodgates happen, right? When people start to come to us in their numbers. And being ready is, of course, contained within the programs we've got. Lawful Bank, the Committee of 100 and Magna Carta. These are initiatives by the British Constitution Group, but they're not exclusive to the BCG. We are getting other people involved, and it's designed to be all-inclusive, right? So as you'll learn through the presentation is that we want as many people involved as possible. All right, so sovereign governance, the important key points are the Lawful Bank, the Committee of 100, and Magna Carta 2015. The objective is the replacement of undemocratic government and the tyranny of the state with a democratic governance, achieved by either beating them at their own game, i.e. win an election, or by changing the rules. Do we think that we can win an election with all the odds stacked against us? No. Right, that means we're going to change the rules. It means building an entirely new system of governance, creating our own authority, and voting into office, not power, voting into office, a truly representative body. The three elements are money, management, and the masses. So let's talk about the Lawful Bank, the money side. The purpose of the Lawful Bank is to put the issuance of a means of exchange back in the hands of the people for the benefit of the people. Now, I've been working on this for 5 years. I can tell you now, we've got this boxed off, yeah? The presumption is that the hell will freeze over before the government will facilitate this objective. Do we honestly think the government is going to wake up morning and say, yeah, green pound, that's a good idea, we're going to do it? No way. The Lawful Bank is a conduit to TAMS. TAMS stands for the Alternative Monetary System. TAMS serves as a central bank, the operation of which must be in accordance with a constitution to be agreed by its members. You are automatically a member of TAMS when you sign up to the bank. The constitution that governs the operation of TAMS is the responsibility of the Committee of 100. It oversees the managers of TAMS. The constitution of TAMS is voted for by members, by those people who signed up to the Lawful Bank. It is formulated on the recommendations and contributions from members. And it's basically about how we want this monetary system to work. And I think a lot of us now have a great deal more knowledge about money and banking than we had several years ago. I know that going back some time, I thought I knew something about banking, but boy, do I know a lot about it now. Managers of TAMS are hired and fired by the Committee of 100, their brief being to manage TAMS in strict accordance with the Constitution agreed by the members, by you. Changes to the Constitution can be proposed by anybody, subject to a number of signatures, and eventually by a quorum, as to be agreed, maybe 60%, 70%, that's what we've got to decide. The hierarchy of TAMS is the members, you, and the Constitution which you vote for, the Committee of 100 which is elected by you, and the managers of TAMS who are employed by the people who are elected by you. The Lawful Bank consists of a number of independent and autonomous branches owned and controlled at community level, so potentially you down at your community level can actually own and control a local branch. And these branches operate under license to TAMS. The Lawful Bank will establish a trial system. This will be a fully pledged system by May 2013. We require 100 branches to be established around the country. So that's my objective. We've already, lots and lots of people have put their names forward. We need to get everybody involved in setting up community branches. If you have a complaint about your banks, then get involved. Okay, this is what it's all about, getting involved. So our objective is to have a working system up and running as a true bank by May 2013. What I can tell you now is the software is actually complete and is working. I know because this morning I went on my Lawful Bank account and I have got £250,000 sovereignty pounds sitting there, right? Am I keen to get this working? You bet. Anybody can set up a branch which will gain access to TAMS subject to having 6 directors, 3 of whom must be property owners. That's not as a security. We don't want their property as security. That is to anchor the branch in a location. Yeah? These 6 directors will contract to provide banking services in accordance with the constitution agreed by the members. Everybody who joins the Lawful Bank agrees to abide by the constitution and agrees to the jurisdiction of our common law courts. So they've closed down our common law courts. We're opening them up again. Directors of branches will be subject to the jurisdiction of our courts, and all members of the Lawful Bank will also be subject to the jurisdiction of our common law courts. What that means is we're putting in place our own legislator, right? If we are going to get the benefit of a new monetary system, we must be prepared to have responsibility as well. And we must be subject, if we're going to have rules and regulations, which are essential when we're dealing with money, we must be prepared to bring people before the courts if they try and break the rules. Judgments in our common law courts will be made by a jury of our peers, according to our constitution, and quite naturally, these must be fellow members of the Lawful Bank. The administrative system that has replaced our common law courts, i.e. those administrative systems out there, will have no jurisdiction over matters relating to TAMS or the Lawful Bank or any other members in matters relating to our money. It's a private club. It's got nothing to do with them. Our common law courts will establish through its constitution the right to imprison, fine or confiscate. Members thus consent to the authority of the courts. So it's by consent. If you don't like the rules and regulations of the bank to protect the money on behalf of all of us, don't join. The TAMS currency is called sovereignty pounds, not sovereign pounds, but sovereignty, in keeping with the concept of our renewed sovereignty. It's denoted by pounds and an S. There is a logo. That's not the word. What's the word I'm looking for? A what? Symbol, thank you. That's the word. That's exactly the word I was looking for. That's a symbol representing the stylized S for sovereignty pounds. Sovereignty pounds are not legal tender. Take notice of this. They are not legal tender and therefore not deemed to be money. They are more correctly vouchers, a currency of sorts, a different means of exchange. If it was money, the FSA would be putting its nose in. I don't know if you realise, but the FSA did a report on the Lawful Bank and said that the Lawful Bank wasn't authorised by the FSA. Whoopee! What it didn't say is it's illegal because they know it's not illegal. How many people have heard David's Bank or Dave's Bank? Okay, I spoke to the solicitors or the lawyers who were dealing with Dave's Bank, had a conversation with the advisor there and said, I believe you're having trouble with the FSA. And he said, that's right. I said, 2 words, deposit and money. And he said, yes. I said, do you have a definition of deposit? He said, well, actually, yes, we do. We spend a great deal of time on deposit. Actually, I didn't say deposit money. I said 2 words. The first word, deposit. Do you have a definition of deposit? And he said, yes, we spent a lot of time on that word. I said, second word, money. Do you have a definition of money? He went, no. He hadn't looked at the definition of money. I said, if Dave was banking monopoly money, do you think the FSA would have to authorise him? And he said, no. I said, all Dave has got to do is bank his own money. How about Dave's dollars, for example? They'd missed this one, hadn't they? That's exactly what the Lawful Bank is doing. The Lawful Bank is creating its own currency, and it will deposit its own currency. That's why the FSA can't stop us. And if they had the ability to stop us, that's what they would do. So TAMS, in accordance with its constitution, will issue bonds to branches in denominations. I know it's late in the day, but wake up, folks, pay attention. It's not complicated, but you need to get your head around that. So TAMS will issue bonds to branches in denominations of sovereignty pounds 1,000. What a bond is literally, it's a piece of paper with the word bond on it. It says this piece of paper is worth 1,000 sovereignty pounds. That is authorized by the Committee of 100. It's an important document. It is handed over to a local branch who buys that bond for £1,000. It pays £1,000 for 1,000 sovereignty pound bonds. So it therefore has real backing of sterling. It's an interface. We have got to start off by giving our new currency an interface with the existing money. But we can't deposit pounds, we can only deposit sovereignty pounds. So we have to create these bonds. That £1,000 is the responsibility of the local branch or the local branches. I envisage there'll be a number of branches working together. So this entitles the branch then with the bond to issue digital credit of 1,000 sovereignty pounds. So if you want to open a branch or bank with the branch and you take £100 to the branch, what they will do is they will exchange, they will sell to you £100 digital pounds, sovereignty pounds. So they are selling to you. They are not taking your money on deposit. That's an important point. So the branch with 1,000 sovereignty pound credit sells it to you, the customers, for £1,000, and the branch then goes and buys another bond. And then 10 more customers with £100 will come in, buy the liquidity, and therefore we are creating a new currency backed by sterling. Digital credit created at branch level can be sold to the customers who will then be able to use a lawful bank as a means of exchange. On demand, customers may sell sovereignty pounds for pound sterling back again. That's a contract between the branch and the customers. So at any time, you can actually get your pound sterlings back, or you can put pound sterlings in exchange for sovereignty pounds. That's how we create the value. It's a criminal offence subject to trial in our common law courts to use the bond security, i.e. the pound sterling, in any way. It must be secured and it must be available at any time to exchange for sovereignty pounds, even when required. So the local branches will retire that money out of circulation and it will be secured somewhere. The security is the responsibility of each branch or branches in each community. So this is not going to a central vault. It's not going to any single group of individuals. It's being contained at community level, and I am absolutely sure local communities can work out how to look after their own money. Yeah? Now, if you had a lot of money, a lot of pound sterling, where do you think you might put it for secure keeping? In a bank? Make use of the services. That actually makes them beholden to us, but it's down to the community what they want to do. How do we guarantee the whole system? If we have got thousands of branches all over the country, all who've got deposits of pounds sterlings and are secured, how do we actually guarantee the whole system? All the sterling deposits held at community level. Each member of TAMS actually gives a pledge to pay £100 if ever asked to do so. This is not a request for money. It is a self-bonding provision. We are guaranteeing our system. If we're not prepared to guarantee our system, then why would anyone trust it, right? I do not ever see an incident whereby we will actually need that money. It's there just as a guarantee. It's the way Lloyd's of London work. The way Lloyd's of London work is people, wealthy people, offer their security, offer their properties as security so that insurance can be offered on the back of it. Yeah, so that's the basic principle. Individuals who sign up to Lawful Bank may exchange £1 for one sovereignty pound. The Lawful Bank does not accept deposits of legal tender. It will only accept deposits of our currency, sovereignty pounds. We've had some designs done. There's a 20, a 10 and a £5 sovereignty pound note. Clearly, the most important thing is if we ever decide to go down the road of money, we've got to be aware of forgeries and so on and so forth, counterfeiting, and there are safer ways to do this. But we've gone down the road because some people do like the idea of having cash in their pockets. There is a debit card, a Lawful Bank debit card. Initially, keyword initially, sovereignty pounds will only be issued against the bonds whose value is guaranteed by the contractual agreement to resell these bonds on demand. That means £1 equals one sovereignty pound, okay? You'll be able to use this card to pay for goods and services with sovereignty pounds at outlets that agree to their acceptance. Now, this is actually not that difficult. Vouchers are used already. Right, so we're actually going into retailers and we're inviting them to accept this card and our sovereignty pounds, conditional upon the fact, of course, that they are backed by pound sterling. So it's a credible proposition. Gradually, another key word, gradually, the sovereignty pound will gain its own recognition as a means of exchange. And don't forget that money has no real value. It is only a means of exchange. It gains its value when people are prepared to accept it for payment. So what we're doing is we are creating a scenario in which retailers, the local pubs, etc., will happily accept Lawful Bank currency because in their mind's eye, they see that it's backed by pound sterling. Whereas in actual fact, the only important thing is that they are prepared to accept it as a means of exchange. So you see how it's working, how it's coming together. This will allow branches to eventually issue loans independent of bonds. A very important point. So whereas initially we must start with bonds, as the currency becomes recognized and accepted all over the country, we can then start to issue our own currency independent of the bonds. It's against the promise to pay signature of the borrower. Anybody in this room can actually create their own currency, and I'll show you how. If you were earning, for example, £25,000 a year, and if you went to a local supplier who knew you, you would say, look, I need supplies of goods to run my business. I'm going to earn £25,000 this year. Would you please supply me the goods on the basis that I will pay you so much per month? The supplier would say, sure, no problem. And you are then duty bound to pay a little bit every month until you've paid back the £25,000 worth of supply. You have just created effectively your own currency. And what's wrong in that? Key point, you must pay it back. Now, the follow-up from that, of course, is if that supplier didn't know you, that supplier would be looking for an intermediary and somebody independent who can actually give that guarantee. That's the Lawful Bank. So the Lawful Bank gives you the opportunity to actually create your own liquidity, borrow against your future earnings, conditional upon you paying it back. And the important point is, because it's your money, you don't have to pay interest. And of course, that's the big scam, isn't it? The banks are issuing our money and charging us charging interest on our own money. There are numerous ways in which we can create real value for sovereignty pounds, each function bringing more credibility to our own monetary system. And Roger my friend Roger there has provided me with a good method of actually introducing the use of lawful pounds. Here's another example. We would ask every single one of you to agree to being paid one day in every 3 months in sovereignty pounds. Now, how many people in the room, to get our Lawful Bank up and running, would be prepared to take payment one day in every 3 months in sovereignty pounds? So we create our own demand. We would say to the people, employers, look, for 1 month every 3 months, how about pay me in sovereignty pounds? And they will say, well, where do I get those from? And you say, well, you can actually borrow them interest-free from the Lawful Bank. What? Interest-free? Well, I'll have a look at that. And we will talk to your employer and say, yeah, happy to do so. Now, he will probably say, well, in that case, maybe I can pay you 2 days a month or whatever. So we are starting to create the demand because we ourselves are actually putting in place the format by which the credibility of the currency will start, because we're prepared to be paid. We'll invite businesses to give their employees a bonus payable in a sovereignty pound. So let's imagine a scenario now where everyone's a bit sort of down in the mouth a bit. We could say to businesses, why don't you actually give your employees a bonus? Say £1,000 across 10 people, £10,000. We can lend that money. Oh, here we go again. We could lend that business that money interest-free, subject to a small fee for the service. That's not a problem. Payable over the next 10 years, £1,000 a year, for example. So that's an easy loan from the business point of view. It's a big benefit to the employer because he's got happy staff. Okay? Now, what happens is that staff that then want to go and spend that money. Now, if you've got lots of businesses who are actually starting to introduce the same format, they're going to go to the same businesses that have actually just given their staff a bonus. So it feeds on itself. The employees with bonuses will only be able to spend their money with businesses who accept sovereignty pounds, who will do so because they themselves have given their employees a bonus. So once it starts ticking over, it feeds on itself, doesn't it? Businesses see the benefit, employees see the benefit, and of course retailers, local businesses are keen for people to come in. What's actually happening is this. The businesses are actually exchanging part of their stock level for sovereignty pounds. Whereas they may normally regard all of their stock in pound sterling, there's a shift. And as we encourage more and more people to use sovereignty pounds as opposed to pound sterling, more and more of the stock value transfers to our system. Loans will be made to individuals who will spend this as businesses who have given bonuses to staff. We'll invite these businesses to pay 10% of their staff wages in sovereignty pounds, and to assist with cash flow, we will lend them this money to be repaid over easy repayment terms. So the point is to get the money out there with lending it to businesses, and it will come back through them agreeing to pay their staff 10% of the wages, and also accepting 10% of payment for goods and services they're providing. Yesterday I had a haircut. The young lady who did my hair was there with her friend, who was another young lady, and they said to me, "What do you do?" And I said, "I work for the British Constitution Group." And she said to me, "What does the British Constitution Group do?" Which she thought she was going to be there for 5 minutes, which is normally how long it takes me to cut my hair. But suffice to say, I simply said, well, we do a lot of things, but one of the things we do is we talk about money. Where does money come from? And you could hear a pin drop, but she said, well, that's a very good question. I've never thought about that. Well, it took half an hour to cut my hair this time, but these two girls were captivated by the knowledge of the money. They were really interested. And when I told them about the £250,000 sovereignty pounds, they wanted to know more. The point is that when we start talking about money, people start listening, don't they? And when we start inviting them to have the benefits of the Lawful Bank, they're sold on it straight away. So this is pushing at open doors. All loans supplied are interest-free, subject to a borrowing fee to be paid to the branch to cover wages and overheads. We're running a banking system. It needs a revenue, and therefore a small fee is perfectly reasonable. When we have reached a critical mass of people, we will issue £250,000 sovereignty pounds to every member over the age of 25 and up to the age of 65. This is real stuff, right? So what we're saying is when we actually get enough people to support the system, when everybody is using our money, well, not everybody, but a fair percentage, a critical mass of people are using our money, we will issue £250,000 sovereignty pounds into their bank account. Hands up all those people who would like £250,000 sovereignty pounds in their bank account. How many wouldn't? It's sit down. There's always a smart guy in the room. I'll deal with that one in a minute. Okay. The point is, this is the easiest sell on the planet. Okay. All we have got to do is to be able to explain it. A slightly different kettle of fish, but that's the process that we're going through. Slowly, people are starting to understand money. And Brian Gerrish and I, this is going back a while, we were traveling 1 o'clock in the morning. We were talking about the fact that talking about money is spreading and people are starting to understand it. And Brian said to me, well, let's go and let's test this out. So we walked into one of the service stations, and a young guy, and he was about 19, I suppose. And so we said, where does money come from? And he said, oh, I know this. And we were quite impressed. He said, it comes from nowhere. So he had the gist of it, okay? So they're talking about it. They're going to start talking about £250,000 a darn sight faster than they'll be talking about money comes from nowhere, okay? People over the age of 65, the assumption is most people have got their own homes. So what we're going to do is we build in a pension instead of £250,000, okay? So we will provide you with a pension for the rest of your life to make sure that you're comfortable. The 25-year-olds, of course, we've decided that there's got to be a mechanism in place there. We don't honestly see that 25-year-olds should be running around with their own homes, but I'll have that conversation with 25-year-olds that are in the room. Okay. The idea is, of course, is as people die and their properties come back on the market, the 25-year-olds will then be entitled to their £250,000 so they can buy into the house. The purpose of the £250,000 sovereign pounds is to be used to buy only a new built home, right? So this creates an entirely new pool of funds, and it's distributed equally to all citizens, and that's why we can do it. And its purpose is to purchase new built homes and eventually empty homes. So it's not to be spent on cars and holidays, okay? So there is a restriction on that. The key point about this also is this will drive house prices down. So you imagine a scenario where you have got a builder who says, all right, you want me to sell a house in sovereignty pounds, and we'll say, yes, we do. 50% will be fine, whatever. And you say, well, how am I going to pay my staff? And we say, well, pay your staff in sovereignty pounds. Why is that then? Because we're going to give them £250,000 sovereignty pounds. Are they going to agree? Of course they are. What about your suppliers? Every supplier is entitled to the same money. So we're actually creating an entirely new pool of funds available to every citizen in the country, and all they've got to do is play ball. So the receipt of the £250,000 sovereignty pounds will be conditioned upon acceptance of 10% of wages in sovereignty pounds. So there's the terms and conditions that we're starting to bring into bear. The key point is that it will eventually go to 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. So it's a process, isn't it? The other thing, of course, is house price or houses must be registered with our land registry. So if you actually have your £250,000 sovereignty pounds and you have bought a house, that house then records that mortgage on the land registry, but it's our land registry. Now, there's two land registries. There will be their land registry, the government's land registry, and we don't recognise their mortgages, essentially because they haven't given full disclosure. But nevertheless, there's a mechanism for dealing with them. So when we actually look at our land registry, we'll say, no, there's no mortgages existing on this land. And their banks will say, well, on this registry there is, and we'll say, well, that's yours, on ours there isn't. So we set up our own land registry. We emulate everything they do. We do what they do. And it's our system. If they can set up a system, so can we, because we are the people. In effect, this £250,000 sovereignty pounds is a lifetime loan. So it's not free money at all. Okay? In the same way that the government or the banks create liquidity and give it to you and you pay it back, we are giving you liquidity and you pay it back. The difference is it's paid back by your estate on your death. Now, can you see the logic of that? Now, when you actually die and your estate pays it back, that money goes back in the pool. And the next 25-year-old that comes knocking on the door will say, can I have my £250,000 sovereignty pounds? And we'll say, yeah, sure. So that the amount of money doesn't actually keep going up. It goes up and down, just like their system. The difference is we don't have to pay it back progressively over the period of our life. We simply get our estate to pay it back on death. Everybody benefits. Nobody is a loser. It doesn't cause inflation. The only people who miss out are the banks. No complaints there then. People with mortgages will be able to pay them off using sovereignty pounds by way of a simple transfer. We will set up agency banks on behalf of HSBC, Barclays, whoever, at the Lawful Bank. If you owe the HSBC or Barclays £100,000, you will transfer 100,000 sovereignty pounds out of your bank to their bank. You can then write to them and say, I've just paid off my mortgage. And what are they going to say? They're going to say, you just made that money out of nothing. And what are we going to say? So did you. The difference is, of course, ours is legitimate because we have consented. We have voluntarily agreed. We are a democracy and we are legitimate. Plus, we have backing our currency. We are prepared to stand behind our currency. And who's standing behind their currency? If their bank system goes bung, who pays the bill? We do. So guess what? From now on, when their system goes bung, who won't be backing their system? We won't, because we've got our own system, right? Do you get it? Also, using fractional reserve banking. Now, everyone out there is condemning fractional reserve banking. Wrong, guys. When it's used for our benefit, it's a very, very useful tool. So this is when our system is circulating its own currency, when we're starting to use our currency. For current accounts, for every £1 sterling that you exchange for sovereignty pounds, we will give you 10 sovereignty pounds. For the first £10,000 that you bring over, and you're getting a wage, if you decide if you're getting £500 a week or a month or whatever, if you first and foremost get £100 brought to the sovereignty pounds, brought over in sovereignty pounds, we will give you 10 times that amount. Okay, so again, it's creating new liquidity for you. For the second 10,000, it's 9 to 1, then 8 to 1, all the way down to par. It's the equivalent of, once you transferred £100,000 over to our system, we will create for you 550,000 sovereignty pounds. What's actually happening is this. If you put £100 in their bank account, they create 10 times the liquidity, don't they? What do they then do with that money? They lend it to us at interest, right? What we're doing is exactly the same. We're taking their money, we're retiring it out of circulation, bringing our money into play, increasing our liquidity multiplied by 10, and we're giving it to ourselves. So that money does not belong to the Lawful Bank or TAMS, it belongs to you. It's interest-free. There is your incentive to empty their bank and fill ours up, okay? So fractional reserve banking is used by the people for the people. And what happens, every time we take £1 out of their system retracts by 10. Do you see where it's going? So when we start talking to our friends in the pubs, in the clubs, in the churches, wherever, and people start bringing the money over, their system is going down and down and down, and ours is going up and up and up. Beyond £100,000, the ratio is on par. Now, some of us don't have £100,000 sitting in the bank account. I certainly don't. But a rich man does. A millionaire might turn around and say, okay, well, I'm on board for this. I'm going to bring my £100,000 and take the benefit. And then he's going to look round for one of us and say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do a deal with you. If I give you £100,000, will you bring your £100,000 over to the bank and can we share the proceeds? And if you're a smart businessman, you'd say, yeah, sure, 90-10, 80-20, whatever the contract deal is, that's what you can do. So we are actually encouraging everybody to get involved. We're not condemning rich people for being rich. Okay, billionaires is a different question altogether. I don't understand a billionaire. How do you spend a billionaire? How do you spend $1 billion? I don't know. So the point is, everybody is encouraged. All pound sterling that is exchanged is retired out of circulation. It's very, very important. That's what's backing our currency in the early stages, and we actually need to take as much money from them as we possibly can. We then progressively exchanging their money system for our own. So you see what's happening. We are actually exchanging their monetary system into our monetary system. The power of the people. Corporations will be invited to exchange at par, 1 for 1. Okay? So we will say to the corporations, you can use our banking system, you can bring your money over to our system, and the exchange rate is on par, 1 to 1, up until a certain date. Beyond that date, you'll only get 90%. And if you still sit on the fence, 80%, 70%, 60%, 50%. Eventually, sorry, we don't want to play with your money anymore. You have to borrow it from our bank. So what we're saying to the corporations is we're sick and tired of the money game that you've been stitching up us with. So we're going to actually play the same game. Either get on board with the people or forget about it. We have established the value in our system. We have established the value of sovereignty pounds as being equal to £1 sterling. Okay, it's in circulation. So £100 sovereignty pounds is actually worth £100. When you exchange £100 sterling for sovereignty pounds, we credit to your account 1,000 sovereignty pounds, which you can then use to pay your electricity, gas, or water bill. So this is what happens. Through your door comes your gas, electricity, and water bill, and it says £1,000. You will then transfer 1,000 sovereignty pounds from your bank account into the agency account for the electricity, the gas company, and the water company. And what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, we don't accept this money. And you're going to say, too bad. That's all I'm going to pay you. And they're going to say, well, we'll see you in court. Now, by that time, we'll probably have 1 million householders all on the Lawful Bank. And we'll say, okay, which one of us do you want to take to court first? Because we can keep you in the courts for 100 years. And even one of us will keep you there for at least 12 months, and that's going to be a good 12 months anyway, because we're going to have a team of solicitors going to help you. Yeah? So you've got 1 million households that are not paying the water company £50 each. That's 50 million in the first month. 100 million. 150 million. Ever heard the word cash flow? Do you honestly think that these people are going to actually sit back and watch their cash flow disappear, waiting for a court case that could take 12 months? No. And remember, they can't cut off our water bill. They can't cut off our water or gas because it's against our human rights. That human rights thing on you become useful one day. And besides, why won't they accept our money? Because we can say to these people, your staff will accept our money. Why don't you pay your staff with Lawful Bank money? Why will they accept our money? Because we've just given them £250,000. Because they just signed up to the Lawful Bank. This is, of course, not bank credit. I've made this point. It's not lent to you. It's your credit as of right. When you spend it, TAMS charges 0.25% transaction fee. So you pay 25 pence in sterling money every time you spend 100 sovereignty pounds. So by the time that's been spent 400 times, it's been replaced by sterling. Do you see what's happening? So we're reinforcing the real value of our currency by virtue of the fact that we keep taking money out of their system. And when we take money out of their system and we retire it out of circulation, we actually provide real value for our currency. So sovereignty money will only circulate through the Lawful Bank accounts. Yeah, so it won't be going through Barclays. It will only go through our bank accounts. Only 10% of the account balance can be withdrawn as cash. In actual fact, only 3% of the money in circulation is cash at the moment. So 10% is 3 times that amount. Because we use cards, we use checkbooks, we use internet payments, etc. So having a provision that only 10% is more than adequate. Okay, so the point is that the 10% cash that you can go to the bank and draw out, guess what? If you want, you can have it in sovereignty pounds or pound sterling, because we got it to back it. It's all dependent on a critical mass of people. It's people power. It's working in unison to the same agenda. That's what we've got to do. The critical mass is not a specific number. Here is an island analogy. Imagine that 1,000 people arrive on this island. That's actually Pitcairn Island in the South Pacific. 1,000 people arrive on the island and nobody lives there. The first thing they do is explore the island, and they discover they've got all the resources in the world. They've got everything to live a normal life. So what they would do is they divide themselves up into various groups, and because we've got children on the island, 1,000 people including children, some people would be the teachers, some people would be the nurses, some people the doctors, some people would be the firemen if we're going to have a fire on our island. Some people would cut down the trees, some people would grow the trees, some people would look after the cows, some people would... what else would they do? What we find on our island is we've got bubbling water, so that indicates we've got gas. So some people would tap the gas and provide the facilities. What you eventually find in this island is this, that we are the resource itself. We're able to harvest the resources. And the one thing that we don't have on the island is we don't have money. So what's the wealth on the island? The wealth is the resource and us. It's not the money. But money is a convenience, because if the guy cutting the logs at the top of the tree has to go down the road every morning with a log to get his pint of milk, what he would say to the lady who milks the cow is, I tell you what, I'll give you an IOU for the milk, and at the end of the month, you bring the IOUs back to me, and I will give you a month's worth of logs. So the individual can create the currency between the two of them, yeah? But ideally... what the islanders would do is they say, well, I'll tell you what, let's create our own money because it's convenient. So they would create £1,000, for example, each, and they would give everybody on the island £1,000. 1,000 multiplied by 1,000 is £1 million, yeah? No interest, no bankers. Everybody gets a fair share of the money. Once your money's spent, once you've actually bought your logs or your milk, you're going to have to make a contribution to earn more money, aren't you? So the logic is money is a useful tool, because the person who's sitting on the beach the other side of the island doing nothing, he's going to run out of money, isn't he? So the key essence of our island is to make a commitment as well. You must be involved in the resources of the island. Now, if a little rowing boat turned up one morning with a man in a black suit and a black briefcase and said, "Hi, I'm a banker," what do you think we tell him to do? Row off. But of course, that's exactly what's happened on our island. The bankers have taken control of the issuance of our money. Boy, have we been scammed. So on our island, we don't need bankers to issue money, we issue it ourselves. And we could issue £1,000, or we could issue £250,000. Do you get it? This is not rocket science, is it? So we need to simply get out there and explain this to people. Okay, moving on, implementing our new system of governance. I'll take questions at the end. I mentioned the Committee of 100. The Committee of 100, the primary objective of the Committee of 100 is to implement alternative governance through practical measures. And I've just described a practical measure to you now. How we set up our own banking system. It's a practical measure. It's doable, yeah? In essence, it's to slowly unravel the controls that have been imposed upon us by Brussels' Westminster elite without our consent. Anybody in this room who thinks they have a contribution to make can put themselves forward for the Committee of 100. We have had 2 meetings now of the Committee of 100. There is another meeting tomorrow at 11:30 at the Fat Cat Cafe? Is that okay? Near here. If you want to get involved in helping us to create alternative governance, put yourself forward. in both these meetings that we had, people put themselves forward. It's a working shop. If you come, you go away with a job, okay? It's about helping to actually get the wheels on our wagon. So if you want to get involved, don't moan about things. Help us to actually construct this. Now, Mike Clark is he's headed up the alternative energy. He's got people helping him. I've headed up the banking side. I've got people helping me. Pete is on the health side. We've got a whole series of departments. And in fact, if you want to get a list of the departments of details, ask Alan Kelly, who's actually got the details. So what we're saying is, if you feel there's something that you feel is important to you and is helpful for the community, put yourself forward. Stop sitting back and moaning and groaning. Help get the thing on the road. This is how it works. You turn up at a committee meeting. Identification is required. We want to know who we're dealing with, okay? You listen to what other people have to offer, and then you put forward what you have to offer. Then you submit on an A4 piece of paper an overview of what you want to do. This is then considered and is either accepted or declined by other members. If accepted, you write up a policy. If agreed by the Committee of 100, it is then put to the vote by all members, and if accepted, you and your team will then construct your policy. The final version will then be voted on by members. This is policy politics, not party politics. Anybody can engage to actually put forward sensible recommendations as to how we wish to be governed. Now, I know a lot of people will think, well, that could create all sorts of complications. And yes, running a country does have its complications. But this is an opportunity for us to engage in creating a system of governance that we want. There's also a democratic format built into the system, which means all these policies can be put to the people and voted either in or out. Okay? We don't have to worry about voting for taxation, because within the monetary system, we have a means of actually making as much taxation as we require, 0.25% on all circulation. I believe the figure would raise more than 200 billion. So just by charging on the circulation of money, we can actually bring in 200 billion. If we needed 400 billion, just double the amount. But the interesting thing about the money that's being spent, it's being spent on things like the Inland Revenue Service. We don't need those, do we? Eh? Customs and excise, we won't need those, will we? MP expenses, we won't be needing those, will we? I can see 50 billion straight off the bottom line. Interest of 50 billion a year, we won't be paying that, will we? Eh? All the bribery and the corruption money that goes overseas, we can scrub that off. I can see a very long list of expenses that we won't be paying out. And I can see that 0.25% of the money that's circulating is going to be more than we need. All right, policies are thus created by the general public, by you. Those whose policies are accepted are automatically included on the Committee of 100. So what we've got is we've got a Committee of 100 which is made up both of local people who are elected by the local constituents that come and sit on the Committee 100, but also people who are putting forward policies. So this door is wide open, isn't it? Video presentations will be given of each of the committee members. So for example, I will get on the stage and I will do a presentation, and I will try and persuade people about the Lawful Bank. And if I do a good presentation, if I've done the homework, I will get voted in on, and I will stay on the Committee of 100. But if I'm not doing a good job, if I'm lackadaisical, I'm not providing the work that I've said I'll be doing, then I will get voted off the Committee of 100. So it's not like recall, it's actually a very clever means of being able to make sure that the people who are representing us are actually on the ball. Okay? And those lazy people who are going to, what's that lady that's just gone to Australia? I think that's a disgrace. What's her name? Nadine, okay. She wouldn't last long, would she? So you see the principle of, we've actually introduced a mechanism by which the policies can be actually created by people who are concerned about putting forward good policies for proper governance. If you are not happy with the way you're being governed, groups can formulate policies, elect a spokesperson to represent their policy, and if they then voted on by the members, it is then carried and becomes policy. Nobody can complain they're not being listened to or being governed properly. There is a built-in democratic format that provides that non-performers can be voted off the Committee of 100 potentially within weeks. If anybody in this room feels they have something to offer by way of ideas as to how they are going to be governed, the door is wide open. The next committee meeting is tomorrow. It's at 11:30. It is here at Stoke-on-Trent. Invitation is there for everybody. As I say, it's a working party. Everybody that comes in the room goes out with a job. Okay? So treat me like the local job shop. Come to me and I'll give you a job. All right, finally, Magna Carta. Magna Carta is a marketing tool, right? Magna Carta 2015 is a modern-day declaration of our right to govern ourselves. The declaration is an undertaking by those who declare in its favour that they will lend their support to a new system of governance that will be independent of foreign interference and will govern for the benefit of the British people as a whole. The declaration will be constructed by the Committee of 100 in the months ahead and presented to the people for their approval. The finished and approved declaration will then be presented to the nation at large to elicit support and to put in effect those provisions contained therein. The Committee of 100 will implement alternative governance, and key members will plan 3 constitutional conventions that will take place on the 15th of June 2013, the 14th of June 2014, and the 13th of June 2015, culminating in the implementation of our sovereign governance on the 15th of June 2015, the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta. At any stage, the door is open for the incumbent government to implement any of our demands to restore our national sovereignty. Do I think they're going to do that? No, I don't. We will not negotiate. We will claim only to represent those who sign up to Magna Carta 2015 in accordance with the provisions of our declaration. We make no claim to represent anybody who chooses not to support our claim of sovereignty. We are selling a very, very positive message to the people out there. We're selling them a new banking system that will benefit them. We're selling them a new system of governance that will listen to them, right? The Magna Carta is the means by which they express their support, okay? Your support for our declaration must be by way of a signed affidavit in which it states that you will willingly transfer your allegiance from the incumbent government to our new sovereign state, okay? So it's a very serious document. It's a very serious declaration. The issue of allegiance to Her Majesty is not raised, as we do not know the circumstances under which she finds herself. We do not know whether she is complicit in the destruction of our sovereignty or coerced. My suggestion is we don't go there. It's a very, very sensitive issue. If we start attacking the Queen, all hell will break loose. We won't go there, okay? And there's our statement. We do not know whether the Queen has been involved in the transfer of our sovereignty or coerced. Let's just leave it there. Our declaration is couched in the language of being for sovereignty and for proper democratic and lawful governance. We are not anti anything or anybody, okay? So what are we about? We are for Britain, we are for democracy, and we are for lawful governments. We are not anti-anything. We will deliver leaflets regionally through first points of contact. I was hoping to have these printed for today, but we fell short on time, but these will be printed. We set up our first points of contact about 2 years ago. We didn't make full use of them then, but I know a lot of them have gone out there and set up their groups. So the idea was that that's what they would do. and they would get out there and do a lot of business. And I know there's lots of first points of contact in the room, lots of first points of contact that have actually done some sterling work out there, and those people have actually gone and done what we'd hoped them to do. We haven't expanded the organization as quickly as we could have done because we've been focused on bringing this all together. So I think we've done an amazing amount of work to get where we are now. The job in hand now is to get out there and build the organization. If anybody in this room is not a member of the BCG, we invite you to become a member. And as I say, also, if you are not a first point of contact and you want to get involved directly on the ground to help us build the Magna Carta, the Lawful Bank, please make contact with us. Let's have your name, and we'll start this organization through. Okay, so we anticipate millions of signatures. I can't think of a single reason why somebody wouldn't say, I'm going to sign up to that. Because the story we're selling them is a very positive story, okay? And I expect that we're going to have thousands of regions. We've now got a 3-year plan in place. We've got 3 years to actually reassert our sovereignty for this country. The aim of each group will be to expand their group and to sign up as many people as possible, and these will be then collated regionally by county. Magna Carta 2015 has its own website. It is up and running at the moment. It's only there designed to build up a database. That database will then be passed back to first points of contact, and we ask the first point of contact to make contact with those people in and around the country. There is only one thing stopping us, ladies and gentlemen, and that's ourselves. Let's do this. Thanks very much indeed. Does anybody have any questions? Lots of questions. Okay, Dave. Can I switch this microphone on, Mike?
Okay, well, not so much a question, but not so much a question, but more of an observation. I'm getting a little alarmed, to be honest. The Lawful Bank I saw as a transition rather than a solution.
Yeah.
It's starting to sound more like a solution put in place. Your metaphor with the island, I see more as a reason why not to have a monetary system, because monetary system wouldn't be involved in that case. You know, everybody on the island would be there for everybody else's survival.
Yeah.
So money wouldn't come into it. If I was a fisherman and I've caught 10 fish, I'd have one for myself, and anybody else on the island could have the rest of the fish. And I'd be able to assume that everybody else on the island would be also contributing to my my well-being. So I wouldn't matter to me.
Yeah.
You mentioned the banker rowing up. The likelihood is, with this monetary system on the island, as you put it, likelihood is, after being told to row off, he'll be back and worm his way into running the monetary system, and then we'll be back in exactly the same position we are in now, because that's how they work. Yeah, we had 700 years of tally sticks in this country, which made this country prosperous, and they worm their way back in. This is what they do. This is what I'm a little worried about with this Lawful Bank.
Well, let me answer that. Okay, let me answer that question. It's a note of caution, and it is a very, very valuable note of caution, because the point is where there's money, there's obviously a tendency for greed, etc. In principle, I believe the direction that we are going is a society without money, I believe. But how do you tell people out there who are fast asleep? What you have to do is you have to give them an example of something that works, that is similar to what they're used to, but the difference being it's in the hands of the people. What the responsibility then falls to is for us to create the system that we want. The Committee of 100 is there to do just that. So if we see a future without money, then that's where we should take it. It's the responsibility of the Committee of 100, the people, right, to actually create the system they want. It's wide open. The door is wide open to create what we want, okay?
Roger, how are we going to back the £70 when the pound sterling crashes?
Well, ultimately, the way a currency is backed is by acceptance by the people. So if our currency has been established and is being used by the people, at that stage, it's not being backed by sterling. That backing actually disappears. It will no longer be necessary. And the point is, we know that our system is based on positive liquidity versus a debt-based system. So, in fact, we are replacing a debt-based system with a positive liquidity system. So which system are you going to use? Are you going to use a system in which you've got money in the bank, or are you going to use a system in which you've got debt? Okay? I think the answer is straightforward. If everybody would just stand up when they ask the question so everyone could hear, please.
I like what I hear, and I think when you think of the logic of it, you can't fail to jump on board. My only worry is if Parliament suddenly says in the early stages that they make it illegal to be a member of the Lawful Bank.
Oh, great. That will get a lot of publicity, won't it? Okay, well, so potentially the government is going to come out and ban monopoly money. Is that what you're suggesting? They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They can try. If they do try it, it'll be across all the papers. Because what they'll be effectively saying is that you can't make money out of nothing, which is effectively what the banks are going to do. Banks are doing. And in essence, we'll be looking for that exposure. That would be fantastic. But that's where the weight of the people will come in. Because you can imagine a member of Parliament at the next elections, and we're saying to him, tell me, are you going to ban the Lawful Bank? Because if you are, the people aren't going to vote for you. Very powerful tool in our favour.
Yeah, my question is, the system that we've got at the moment, I mean, that system, it's going to die screaming, and it's going to do anything it can to when we've got it into a corner. If this system, if your system worked, we've got it into a corner, I mean, they're the ones with all the military might, they're just going to crush us. I mean, how do you... I know we want to be peaceful, but I can see a point where it comes to a tipping point we end up in civil war.
Well, I don't see it like that, because what I've said is that we're not actually trying to close their system down. All we're doing is we are opening our system. At any point in time, the question we ask of them is, what are you worried about? If you feel that we're a threat to you, all you've got to do is compete with us, offer the same thing. It's fair competition. Bear in mind that the police on the street, we've just offered them £250,000 in our system. And bear this in mind also, that with our own liquidity, we can pay the police. And we can pay our own police force tax-free. And they will have no mortgage and no rent to pay. Who do you think side they're going to be on? Okay? It's persuasion. You know, as you say, you've all listened to the logic of it all. All the pieces are there. It's sheer logic. It's not threatening anybody. It's an invitation. Would you like to join us? £250,000.
What I want to know, at some stage, when this bank is up and running, would people be able to use the bank who are not online, do it on the computer?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And really what to join the bank, which I don't understand.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Each branch is it's a physical local branch. Yeah. And it will be people you know, right? So I envision that each branch will be a small group of people and possibly will have several hundred customers. And there'll be several branches, okay? So that's another sort of presentation for another day. As I say, the Lawful Bank presentation covers all those points, but it's quite extensive. So the answer to your question, yeah, you'll be able to go to a local branch. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Sir.
If I wanted to set up a branch,
Yeah.
and you're talking about next year,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, okay, you need to phone me, talk to me, put your name forward, okay? Did I mention that I actually went online and I've got £250,000 already? I mentioned that, didn't I? Quite excited by that. I need to spend it now. Sir, go on.
I really love the idea, and it's an idea pretty much where I'd love to see in the future, but I think it's a bit naive. I think, do you really expect the Federal Reserve, the Bank of Rome, the IMF, do you really expect all those banks to stand back and watch us become independent and become free citizens?
We've done it in Iceland.
I am determined myself to make this work. How many people in this room are determined to make this work? Yeah, look, the powers of positive thinking, the bottom line is that we just got to get on and do this. By May next year, we will have branches up and running. The only way they can actually close us down is by attacking us, and that would expose them for what they really are. I promise you that this is starting to go across the country. It's not just the country, it's around the world. I get phone calls from people in Canada and people in South Africa, and they're talking about joining up with the Lawful Bank. This is going to happen.
I just want to be realistic.
Well, what's the...
I'm prepared to give my life for my granddad, and I will do it. If I have to go on the street and fight for this, I will do it.
Well, we don't want to go down that road because we don't have to. All we got to do is we got to...
Defend myself, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to stand there and let somebody go.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Tibet here, where the Dalai Lama has let tens of thousands of his people butchered because of his religious beliefs. You know, at the end of the day, I want to be able to defend myself and my family. I'm a religious person, so I live a religious lifestyle. I have spiritual law, but within that law, I can protect my family and I can protect myself.
Well, that's what we want people on side. Sir, go on.
I said up to 65. What about those old fogies? What plans have you got for those?
Okay, I did explain that people over the age of 65, we've built into the system as a pension, right? The assumption is that you already have your home, and if you don't, obviously provision could be made, but there's lots of flexible aspects in there. I didn't want to spend half an hour explaining all the contingencies, but basically, at the age of 65, you will have a pension until the end of your life.
What for the under 25s?
The under 25s, well, when you get to 25, your 250,000 sovereign pounds is available to buy your house. There might be some conditions attached, though. No, that was a joke. Sir, go on.
We talked about 250,000 that people will have as credit.
Yeah.
Now, if you had a national debt-free banking system, you can have a system called social credit.
Yes.
Which, instead of quantitative easing, the people can be paid a credit into their bank account to stimulate the economy, which they spend themselves, which is then taken out of circulation by taxation, which is not inflationary. So that's another benefit that people get.
Well, that's exactly what happens with the Lawful Bank. I mean, effectively, you imagine this scenario, right? If all of a sudden everyone's got £250,000 sovereign pounds in the bank ready to spend on a new house, where does that money get spent? I mean, if I give you £1,000, what are you going to do with it? You're going to spend it. And that person's going to spend it. So this money goes into the economy, so it creates a new pool of liquidity. Okay, in actual fact, what is happening is because all this land is now being registered in our system, right, we are transferring the ownership of the land, the property in the United Kingdom to our system. That's what's happening. So we are using this money, right, to drain their system. We're taking it from the banks, the wealth of the banks. We're putting it to the wealth of the people. We are transferring from their system to our system, and we have got sufficient liquidity for running all our businesses, okay? So it is exactly the same process.
And then you're talking about the island, that's actually implemented in Guernsey, and it's been implemented many times all throughout history, and many people have implemented their own little currencies and have tried to ban it.
Yeah, it's not been done, it's been done 1,000 times before, so it's not magic. Madam?
I have grandchildren. I have accounts for my grandchildren with quite a lot of money in. How would I transfer my grandchildren to a bank?
Well, you would open a bank account in their name, bring the money over, and the deal is done.
Would I not have to go through the process I went before, like having a birth certificate to make sure they were here and registering them? What I had to do when I opened that account?
I mean, you've opened a can of worms there, which could take us down another road. But obviously, you're only allowed to have one bank account, so there has to be some means of controlling that. Okay. So once again, the Committee of 100 sits down and comes up with the means of making sure that there is no fraud. The bottom line is, if anybody comes into Lawful Bank and actually fraudulent tries to open 2 bank accounts, then all of their money would be wiped out potentially. So there's got to be means and ways of controlling against corruption, etc.
Yeah, I have private them, and I have 5 accountants, and they've all got quite a bit of money, and they've got 2,000 in all of them. And how would I transfer any of them?
Well, I mean, that's just a technical. Yeah, but of course you would. But you sit down with your local branch and work out to open up 5 bank accounts. Yeah. So it's not. Madam. You go first, go on.
You've done a 2-hour talk at Truth Juice Birmingham last year. We just put it up on YouTube, and a lot of these questions are answered in a bit more
detail, yeah.
550 questions, and thanks very much for a fantastic line.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, to allay any concerns, the Bristol pound had to be delayed because it's taken off in such a big way. This has potential for a far wider reach.
Absolutely.
They have had an enormous success with that. And the other thing I was going to say, with regards to depositing sterling in exchange for the new currency, might it be a contingency to then transfer some of that sterling into actual physical gold and silver reserves in order to protect it against perhaps massive inflation due to quantitative easing?
Okay, I'm not in favour of backing our currency with gold or silver, because it's backed by the people, the wealth of the people, right? As soon as you go down the line of backing with gold and silver, who owns all the gold and silver? The Rothschilds. So we would then be in their control. The one thing they do not own is they don't own us. Well, actually, that's probably not quite true, but the one thing they won't own is us. And if we're prepared to actually back our system, that's all the wealth we need to put behind it, yeah? Sir?
With the turnout for the police polling stations were at 13%.
Yeah.
I don't think now's the perfect time to launch a political party.
Well, again, I'm not in favour of party politics, and I think I've made my point. There is a better way of actually providing the people with governance. And I believe that what we're putting in place now is an alternative system of governance that avoids the party problem. Right, and I don't want to go down the road of a party. I mean, if anybody wants to give it a go, they have my blessing. But I'm afraid I don't think they're going to have much luck.
Brewster's millions, just be a question of saying none of the above. No?
Well, again, I mean, all you're doing is you're giving them acknowledgement. I don't want to get involved with them. I think we just let them get on with it. Basically, what we're doing is we're creating an alternative. I don't want to even talk to them. Yeah, I don't want to vote for them. I don't want to be involved with the politics at all, because I think they're too corrupt. To me, they've had their chance. And they failed, so let's just move on. That gentleman there.
When we buy sovereign pounds with pound sterling,
yeah,
will the pound sterling be stored?
Yeah. The pound sterling will be stored at community level. So, for example, if you have a branch, yeah, and if people join that branch, that branch itself, the community, including the customers, they will be responsible for their own money, yeah. So I'm sure they will work out themselves what the safest place to put that. ultimately, you know, you've got thousands of branches all over the country, and you've got to be very careful who your local branch is. And I think, you know, you will, and I think the people in this room are a lot more trustworthy than the bankers we've got at the moment. Where do you put your money at the moment? That banking system, yeah.
What do you think of the smaller banks that are around at the moment, like the Cooperative Bank, Metro Bank?
Well, I mean, again, you know, I don't know who they are. I don't know the chief executives are probably on £1 million a year and all the rest of it. So I think they're tarred with the same brush, basically.
Roger, when the banks become successful, and you've got branches, hundreds of branches all over the country, how do you intend to stop the Rothschilds from interfering with it? Because they declare war on all countries that have an independent economy that they do not control.
Within the system, that a branch consists of 6 people, 6 directors. Each of those directors can actually be involved in just 2 of the branches. And in fact, we encourage them to do so. But you are not allowed to own more than 3 branches or be involved in 3 branches. So that's designed to make sure that the branches are autonomous and independent, so nobody can take over the branches. They're always community and local branches, okay? So they're always small community controlled by the local people. Sir?
I spent 20 years working in the finance industry.
I've got a job for you.
Yeah. When do you want my 1,000 quid?
Good man. Yeah, right. Well, you can start with a glass of red wine at the bar at 6 o'clock, okay. Madam, at the back there, go on.
Is there an age requirement to sign this thing in 2015? And also, what will it mean practically? Will we lose access to things like the NHS and child benefit that the state pays for now?
Okay, you've asked a question about child benefit and so on and so forth. Within the Lawful Bank system, there is what we call national wealth, right? Which we actually can distribute to everybody. Now, why would you want child benefit when you've actually got a house with no mortgage, without rent, and so on and so forth? So that subject matter I can deal with, but it's quite complicated. And what I'd suggest is that you actually won't need child benefit. Okay, that's all I can suggest at this point in time. It's a very wide-ranging. And on the very, very important question about the age thing, actually, I've not thought about it in great detail, but I imagine it would be sensible that it's quite a mature vote, and I would suggest that adults over a certain age should be voting. I don't imagine...
My children.
All right, it's a very good point, and I think this is one of the issues that should be raised. Should you be allowed to vote on behalf of your children? So if there's a family of 5 people, should that be 5 votes? I think the answer is yes. Yeah? But I think I would open that suggestion to the wider audience and get feedback from people. So I think that you should be entitled to vote on behalf of your children, yeah?
Okay. Anyway, as a voter, you vote on behalf of your children.
But it's not quantitative, is it? It's you know, it's you vote for one. But if you've got 4 children, if you're voting, that's 5 votes. So we need to think carefully. That gentleman at the back there.
If your sole income is benefits, there are people that are taught this conference who are involved in the social services system. They become adults. If their sole income as adults is benefits, would you be welcoming them as investors?
Yes, of course. I mean, the crucial thing about the whole economy, it's the whole thing is corrupt. Let me give you an example, is that we have got technology that provides that we could all work 3 days a week. Whereas the financial benefit of all that technology, it's gone into the hands of a few people. So what we need to do is we need to explode the whole thing open, and we need to actually provide national incomes to all of us so that we're all working 3-day weeks. So I don't see that there's going to be any need. I don't think there's going to be, you know, if you like, the benefits. I just don't see that there's going to be a problem with benefits, because I don't think we're going to need benefits. The benefits make us beholden, whereas if we have got a national wage that's coming from the national wealth, then that actually would replace the benefit requirement. And there's no exclusions in this. I don't see any proposition where we're going to start excluding people because of this, that, and the other. The only issue being, criminals. We want to exclude the criminals, of course, but that's already built into the system.
If the person's sole income is renting, would they be able to invest in 2013?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't see any prospects of excluding anybody.
This £4 million is going to fix people. It's specifically to buy a house. Is that right?
It's only to buy a new build initially.
Right. And then you're supposed to do that when you're done.
And yeah, that's right. So it's secured against the property. So what really happens is...
Is a house staying at 250,000 then? Because you did say that the price of the house was taken down.
Well, the point is, I mean, if you think about it, it's not really about the quantity, it's about the house, isn't it? It's what it's really about. I mean, I'm talking in money so that we're talking the same language that other people talk about. What I'm really saying is what this policy is all about is to give you a house. That's what it's...
So that's going to be given back, not the two.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So the security of the property passes back into the system, and that's then available for the next person. So, yeah. Yeah, and it may be that in the future you don't need $250,000, you only need 150,000. So it adjusts itself downwards. Sir?
I'm unsure why you want to promote new housing when there's already currently millions of houses in the UK which are perfect for living in. So, the current government isn't doing enough to get these houses back to the people. So why are we making more houses unnecessarily?
Okay.
The housing market at the moment is stagnant, it's not moving.
Yeah.
So would that mess up the market even more, an overflow of housing, which is unnecessary?
Okay, again, you've raised a couple of interesting points. The caveat is this, of course, is that if there is a home that's empty, right, as far as I'm concerned, that can be renovated as a new build home, right? So that's the caveat. So it does take into consideration the fact that if a home is not actually being used by somebody, that's not going to put inflationary pressures on. If we release this money to buy existing property where people are living in, all it would do would increase the property prices. That's why the emphasis is on new build home or renovation of empty homes. Okay, so that answers your question there, yeah. Any more questions? Sir?
Simply, and I say simply, if we have this £40 million each, etc., a lot of money, how do we convince the barber, the butcher, the baker to accept this money? Nobody having a pocket full of money, people aren't going to accept it for their services.
Okay. What I explained through the presentation is that there's a means by which we can encourage people to accept our money. I'll give you an example, right? If I go into a hairdresser and I say, would you be prepared to cut the hair of people who are a member of the Lawful Bank, conditional upon being paid £9 sterling and one Lawful Bank pound, sovereign pound, right? The proposition is that hairdresser could treat it as a discount or a voucher system, right? The difference being, of course, that they can then on-spend it. There's so many pros and cons about how we can encourage people to accept the money, not least of which the $250,000 certainly makes them sit up and take notice, but that is just a provision when the circulation is up and running. We can lend people money, sovereignty money. We can invite them to pay part of their wages in sovereignty money. There's, as I say, that through the presentation, there's a number of ways in which we can encourage people to use the Lawful Bank money, interest-free loans, etc., not least of which that we are pushing on an open door by virtue of the fact that people are so fed up with the banks. They will grasp at this. And look, the number of people that are, if you like, at these conferences, etc. I mean, I put this to a vote now. How many people will back the Lawful Bank? You know, and so a lot of these people who know business, I'm going to go into these businesses and said, will you back the Lawful Bank? Yes, I will. Will you do this? Yes, I will.
Yeah, well, they will put their money into it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, how can we convince our local butcher? We want a couple of full
Well, the local butcher is just as fed up as everyone else. I mean, if I sit down and explain to the butcher, look, if you sell me £10 worth of beef, would you accept 1 or 10% of the value in sovereignty pounds? And I'm anticipating he would say, yes, conditional upon me being able to spend it. It's all about being able to spend it. And what I'm inviting the butcher to recognise is the newspaper shop down the road is also prepared to accept 10% of their sale in Lawful Bank, conditional upon them being able to spend it. And I will say, well, guess what? You can go and spend it at the butcher's. All money goes in circles, and all we have got to do is convince people by virtue of the critical mass that we've got enough people behind this to actually start the ball rolling. So that's the emphasis, that's the job in hand. And I know a lot of people think, oh, you can't do this. But, you know, people go to America and start using dollars just like that because it's in existence. And it's the same when you go to Europe. You start using euros because it's in existence. So we
people who go to Europe or the States are using their currency.
Yeah.
What we are doing, or trying to do, is to introduce a new currency.
A parallel currency. Yeah. Well, it is, but have you ever been given a voucher? Have you ever been given a voucher?
I'm sure I must have.
Yeah, a book voucher. So did you take it into a shop and did you spend it?
I don't know.
Well, the answer is yes, you have. I've used vouchers and people, and what I've said at the very beginning, what we do is we actually exchange. People, and this lady at the back there said that the Bristol pound is being so successful, they've had to delay it to print some more money. So the answer's already out there. Will people accept it? Yes, they will. They're already doing so.
Roger, do you have a focused and targeted marketing campaign in the offing around now? The internet, leaflets or anything like that?
Well, we're working towards that. The market, yeah. I mean, again, that's part of the job in hand is the marketing campaign. There's a lot of work to do. Oh, and by the way, I will sort of make this point now. I am looking for people to help out with web designs and design work and stuff along those lines, leaflet designs and so on and so forth. So if there are anybody out there that has any skills in that department, please contact me, because a lot of the work is falling on just a few individuals, and it would be helpful if we could get people involved in that side of things. Go on, Madam. Behind you.
Surely this is an incentive to everybody to stop using the big supermarkets and use the local trade.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It seems to be quite a bit longer, but it's well worth it, because the people, they now know me because I'm going in every week and it's, oh, hello, how are you, etc. Whilst the supermarket doesn't even notice you're there as they think.
Yeah. Again, I mean, the whole package it's about sustainability. It's about using your local stores, etc. You know, the whole point is the Lawful Bank gives us an opportunity to change everything back the way it should be, without being naive, without being unrealistic. And I say it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have given ourselves a 3-year deadline because we need to get on with this now. We need to stop talking the negatives and start talking the positives. Now, I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to wind up the day. Sir, back there.
We contribute 60 million a day to the EU at the moment. How will this affect that relationship in the future?
Well, we are not a member of the European Union. I am not a member of the European Union. Nobody on this planet can tell me I'm a member of the European Union. Okay, so end of story. Yeah.
I was wondering if the Lawful Bank would offer insurance, car insurance, just for third-party liability.
Okay, well, we've been working on that. We actually were working on a scheme to create a car insurance for 1,000 people, and where we came unstuck was on the personal liability aspect of it. And the only way that you can guarantee the personal liability aspect of it is if you've got your own currency, your own funding. So we will definitely go down that road. But again, you open up a lot of cans of worms, because we have national insurance, right, which actually already insures us anyway. So the question is, why isn't that being put to its proper use? And the answer is, once again, is because we're being scammed. But in the question of insurance, yes, we can cover all commercial aspects that we want to. All right, so I think, ladies and gentlemen, again, I just want to sort of say, you know, we owe a great deal of thanks to the guys at UK Column and all of you guys out there for the work that you've done. First points of contact, please put yourselves forward. Please get involved. Let's get out there and let's do it. Thank you very much indeed.